People, you're welcome to another exciting one on your favorite show, Ness Ika Show. And of course, I remain your favorite host, Ness Ika. Today, we are going to be looking at burns. Yes, we'll look at what is burns. We're also going to be looking at the different types of burns. Then, we'll be looking at the causes of burns, who is at risk for burns, and we'll be looking at these tips for managing burns, and why not the prevention and the complications of burns. Now, what is a burn? A burn can simply be defined as an injury to the skin and or its underlying tissues. Now, what are some of the causes of burns? There are several different causes of burns. We can have burns resulting from electrical sources. That's electrical burns. We can also have chemical burns. We can have burns resulting from radiation. We can also have sunburns. Many of us must have experienced sunburns, which results oftentimes when you walk in the sun without maybe a cap or sunshades or sunscreens. You realize that you have some dark patches underneath your eyes. Yes, those are sunburns. Then we can also have burns from cold or from heat. Now, who are those who are at risk for burns? Young children, the elderly, that's young children, the elderly, and teenagers are mostly at risk for burns. Why young children? Because oftentimes they wander about at home, and also their curiosity to maybe know what is in the socket and so on and so forth. They may suffer from electrical burns. They may also suffer from thermal burns. Okay, now the elderly people too can also suffer from burns because as they age, they become more fragile and they can easily sustain injuries at home, and burns is one of them. Teenagers too can also sustain burns, maybe as they try to prepare maybe breakfast, lunch. They can see that from time to time they may suffer from these thermal burns. Now, how do you know that you have a burn, or what are some of the signs and symptoms of a burn? You realize that you may have a dark coloration of your skin. For those who are dark skinned like myself, you may realize that there's a dark patch where you sustain that burn injury, or you may also realize that you have blisters around that portion. Then there is pain, and there could be swelling in that area too. Looking at all of those, what are some of the consequences of these burns? Now, if you have a burn and they're not properly managed, you can suffer from a lifetime deformity, what we call contractures. Or imagine that you have a burn on your face and it's not properly managed, and at the end of the day you end up with a deformed face, maybe a deformed eye, nose, or whatever. You don't want to suffer from that. Therefore, there is a need for you to stay glued to this video so that you can learn these tips on how to manage burns. Now, basically, we have what we call first degree burns. We have second degree burns, where the second degree is divided into the second degree superficial and the second degree deep, and then we have the third degree burns. We are actually going to be looking at how to manage these burns. Now, what's a first degree burn? A first degree burn, you suffer from a burn. It could be from chemicals, it could be from radiation, it could be from whatever it is, but only the first layer of the skin is damaged, and you realize that it's going to manifest in such a way that you only see a discoloration of your skin. You see that that portion is darker than the other portions of your skin. That's simply a first degree burn. Now, a second degree superficial burn, you realize that you have something like a blister. In our subsequent videos, we are going to tell you how to manage such blisters, because there are also tips in managing blisters so that they don't result into large wounds. Now, a second degree deep burn is where you find out that you don't have the discoloration of the skin or the blisters, but you actually have something like a wound. Now, these ones are really, really painful because the nerve endings are exposed, so you're really going to feel a lot of pain. Third degree burns, oftentimes they affect more than 10% of the skin, and such burns are usually managed in the hospitals by your healthcare providers, by your nurses, by a multidisciplinary team. So here we are going to look at how to manage first and second degree burns. Now, based on this classification, you would agree that we can classify, or we can group these burns as either mild, moderate, or severe, where severe will simply be the third degree burns. Then the mild and moderate can be the first degree and the second degree burns. Now, how do we manage these burns? Assuming that you sustain maybe a thermal burn from hot water, for instance, in the kitchen, how do you manage it? First thing you should do when you sustain such a burn is to run to your tap, immediately open the tap, put the affected area under that tap for at least 20 to 30 minutes. Yes, that running water is the idea is to bring down the temperature of the affected area. So when you open the tap and put your hand under it, is actually going to reduce that temperature, and you have less effect or less consequences or less complications from this burn. Now, the next thing you can do, if you have a first degree burn, all you can do, remember that the first degree burn, you're just going to have that discoloration of your skin, that slight change, which is a bit darker than your normal skin. You can use aloe vera gel. You just put aloe vera gel on it for 1 to 2 days, and you see that everything is going to resolve. Then, for those of us who have maybe second degree burns, we can start by, it could be either superficial or deep. I've told you in our subsequent videos, we'll be looking at how to manage blisters. Assuming that we have the deep second degree burns, what do we do? All you need to do is do a daily wound dressing on it. It could be by yourself. Firstly, remember that you always have to wash your hands properly before you start anything on burns. Therefore, you're going to wash your hands properly. Then you wash it with clean water, and then you can apply whatever antibiotics you have on it. Now, okay, if you're also, another thing you can equally do, the reason why we're taking antibiotics especially is just for prophylaxis. But if you have a burn in a particular area that you're suspecting that is going to result to infection, then you can take antibiotics. However, antibiotics are not necessary. The main thing you need to do is to wash this area properly with clean water and maintain proper hygiene. You can also apply aloe vera gel. Don't forget that the first thing you need to do is to open up that running water and let that place cool off for about 20 to 30 minutes. Now, what are some tips that you and I can use to prevent that we don't even suffer from these burns? The first thing we want to do, for those of us who have children at home, we have elderly at home, even for you and I, the first thing we may want to do is that whenever we want to shower, make sure you test the temperature of the water before you get in, because that's a common mistake we all make. You just assume that, okay, the water is okay for me, and you get into it and you realize that it's so hot you're going to suffer from a burn. So you may want to test the temperature of the water before you get in the shower. Also, for those of us who use maybe stove or gas cookers, you may want to start avoiding using the front sections of the gas and rather use the back section, so that it can prevent or it can limit the occurrences of you suffering from a burn. Then, if you're using a frying pan, for instance, or a cook spoon in a pot, you may want to divert the handle of the frying pan or the cook spoon away from maybe the area that can let you bump into it and is going to splash any hot soups or any hot food on you, so that you will not suffer from a burn. And another thing that we want to do, for those of us who have children, we want to avoid going towards the stove or the gas or hot objects when you're carrying the child. And don't forget that all our sockets, electrical appliances, we should keep them away from the children, and all sockets should be well protected. You should cover them so that your baby doesn't accidentally get to touch the socket and get electrocuted. I hope you learned something in this video, and please don't forget to share so that others can also benefit from this knowledge. For those of you who have not yet subscribed, please do so. Keep liking the video and sharing so that others too can learn. And for those who have already done so, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I remain your favorite host,